This is Envision Self-Healing Podcast, episode number 43. Hi, I'm Will Fuller.
And I'm Richard Miller.
And we are the co-creators of EnvisionSelfHealing.com and are dedicated in helping you improve your eyesight and quality of life
by taking healing into your own hands. And the topic of the week this week is 5 steps to a New Year's resolution, part 1, be specific. And at the second half of the podcast, our question comes from Facebook. And this person asks, when I work out strongly, my vision gets blurrier. Why is that?
So, Richard, how's the festive world of self-healing been treating you these last few weeks?
Well, I've done... It continued to rain through the holidays in San Francisco. I guess you were in England and it rained there as well. Mm-hmm. So again, I stuck to a lot of palming throughout the holidays. And the holidays are festive and stressful, as we all know, at the same time. And of course, we're eating foods that we don't normally eat as well, but that are delicious, but not our normal healthy fare. Mm-hmm. So I did a little of that as well. But I just did a lot of palming, again, because of the weather as well. And the thought has occurred to me. I'm beginning to think, so this is my Richard brain thing. Okay. I'm also ordering a new computer. I've talked to you about this, and that my computer is now 7-8 years old almost. And I've bitten the bullet and ordered my new Apple computer. It's being shipped from China as we speak. Which is kind of ironic because Apple's about 40 minutes down the road, and it's
designed in America, made in China.
Exactly.
I think it says on this box.
Yep. So it's on its way. It's probably in mid-flight over the Pacific right now, headed towards me. Mm-hmm. And my image of this new computer, and the reason I'm getting it is I've completely filled up. Well, our videos have completely filled up my hard drives. And I was going to get new hard drives, but I'm like, okay, this computer's so old. Let's get a whole new. Anyway, the image of this new computer is all this free memory, right? Mm-hmm. It just feels like it's clean, it's new, it has no video, it has all this space for videos. Uh-huh. And I began to think the analogy of palming and what this computer represents. Oh, nice. Right? See, it's like,
I'm getting it.
Yeah, you're getting it? It's like the palming is clearing out the optic nerve, the visual system, the visual part of the brain, sort of relieving it of all of that information that's normally coming in through our eyes and going through that nerve system to the brain. And I began to think of it as kind of rebooting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Reformatting the hard drive, that if you give the brain, the nerve, the space to clear out, you've got like a brand new computer or a brand new hard drive.
I guess also in internet terms, they call it caching.
Oh, okay.
Or clearing your history on your
they're clearing your history.
Yeah,
or cookies or something like that. Yeah, getting rid of all those cookies on my optic nerve.
Not just the ones you were eating over Christmas time.
Right. Okay, now I'm going to make another Richard leap. So I was looking into your guy, Deepak Chopra. I was looking at some videos over the holidays as well, Deepak Chopra. And he talks about quantum healing, right? Uh-huh. And I've got this interest in quantum physics from my photography.
That's the first, that's the lecture series that I first found out about.
Really?
Mir Schneider through, yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so I really I've never really experienced videos of his before. Okay. And I really like him. I mean, he's been doing it for years and years because I saw him as a young man and now in his 60s. Okay. Anyway, he talks about quantum healing. He talks about this thing he calls the discontinuity, which is sort of the, this is hard to explain in quantum physics, but it's like this wave, what I call the wave of possibility, or place in between kind of reality where all possibilities are there. It's sort of like, in the Buddhist terms, it would be the void or the emptiness, where all possibilities emerge out of.
This isn't anything to do with your Mac computer, is it?
It is. I'm going to make a connection. I'm going to make a connection. So, palming, the Mac computer, is that emptiness, that state of rest out of which all possibilities can emerge. Okay. And in terms of quantum healing, it's like you need to kind of clear out all of the sort of stress and strain. That's sort of like the actuality or the reality that the day-to-day strain and reality that we're all dealing with. Mm-hmm. You need to sort of clear it out so that healing can happen. And that's, to me, is like the analogy of what palming is doing for us, is returning us almost to the void or to that source state.
Yeah.
So that healing or healthy ways of seeing can come out of it.
Maybe almost a state of homeostasis, maybe you would say, sort of a point of beginning.
Exactly.
And that's why reducing strain is so people just don't get it, the importance of reducing strain in our eyes, because it's creating that imbalance.
Right. Oh, and okay, my last thought is this is what's unique about what you and I do, what Meir Schneider does, and what the Bates system really taught, and why that's different than what's called behavioral optometry, where they give you exercises. So if you have, say, crossed eyes or double vision, they would give you, a behavioral optometrist would give you all of these convergence exercises, which are good, but they would ignore resting your eyes. In general, they don't think that's useful.
Yeah.
Whereas Bates really emphasized it, and Meir Schneider emphasizes it, and he taught us, so we emphasize it as well, that you really need to get back to that state of, I'll use your term, the homeostasis, that to allow natural, healthy vision to come from that, rather than just adding more strain in some ways onto the system.
And it's fascinating that you brought that up, because only yesterday I was having a similar conversation with one of my clients, and I was getting some feedback on how it's been the last few weeks on her festive holidays. And she spent a lot of it doing a lot of healing, actually.
Okay.
And I was really pleased to see that she'd stuck with the exercises. Now, one thing that's really interesting is that what we're talking here is sort of on a physical level, but she was also talking about the psychological level.
Exactly.
And in particular, the last few weeks, she says she's been spending a lot of time sort of clearing out that memory. Well, it actually is memory, I guess.
Yeah.
Clearing out all these negative emotions. And,
exactly.
And not just about her vision, but things in the past that could either have led to current conditions, or that just allow, with your computer, it's filled up with lots of memory, right? Now it can't really function as fast as it used to. So even if you can clear some of that out, then it means it's going to start functioning a little bit better. So, if we can clear out these negative beliefs and emotions, and on the emotional and psychological level, then that's really going to help us with our vision improvement as well. And that's really something that
I'm really glad you went there, because I was going to go there, and you're more believable on this topic because you're more realistic than I am. But
it's
exactly what I was going to go. Yeah,
we were saying it only yesterday, and we had a full 15-20 minute conversation about the importance of working on the psychological side of vision improvement. And I was explaining to her how such a large percentage of people fail in vision improvement.
Yeah.
Not because the eye exercises don't work, because they can't handle that psychological side of the exercises, of being forced to work with what's weak. And vision is so connected to the brain, it really taps into our deep emotions.
Yep.
And to work with the exercises is also to work with those emotions as well. And a lot of people just aren't prepared for that, and they just can't work with it.
And it makes perfect sense, because vision, of all the senses, vision is the most tied into who we are. It really identifies who we are, so it makes sense. And you're right, all that healing, and when he says quantum healing, I would say you apply that same principle psychologically, spiritually, and physically. It's all the same process of returning to the void or the source, and allowing sort of health to come out of that. So yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, the documentary Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead, which we highly recommend everyone to watch, whether you're fat, sick, or not
or nearly dead.
He uses the analogy of, if you cut your knee and you get a scab, it's not very romantic, sorry about this, and if you just leave it alone. And the image that springs to my mind is what he has on the documentary, is a cartoon of a kid with a cut knee, sitting on a chair, and he's trying to scab, and he's scratching it. He's trying to break the scab off. And if you just leave it, then it heals by itself. And the reason why I use this analogy is for him, he had this condition that he didn't know about, or there was no medical answer to.
Right.
And it was him that was getting in the way. He had a poor diet. He wasn't exercising. So in his mind, is if he could move out the way and just allow his body to heal itself. And sure enough, as you go through the documentary, you watch him juice and heal and all the rest of it. So, you know, it's our body wants to heal.
Right.
We're so busy blaming our bodies for doing this to us. It's like a separate entity almost. That if we move out of the way, then then it will work.
Yeah. All right. So how was your holidays of self-healing, or were they self-healing in England?
Very good. It was a surprise trip back to my family, so it was nice being the surprise.
Yeah.
And just catching up with family, and you know, it's always good. I was able to, as I'm sure everyone knows, with my retinitis pigmentosa, it's hereditary, so my father has the same thing, so he's legally blind. So I was able to update him on his new iPhone 5. We really need to just work for Apple, don't we?
I know. They should really be paying us for all the time we spend on Apple.
It helps him so much. I mean, it's fantastic what he's able to achieve with it, and it really is a new lease of life. So it's kind of nice as well, you know, to be there and spend time and with everyone, obviously. And it was interesting for me because I was traveling by myself.
Oh, right.
And I noticed that it wasn't as difficult. I wasn't bumping into anything. I didn't trip over one suitcase.
And I wasn't there to trip you with my suitcase.
So maybe that's what it was. But anyone that's listened to our Brazil podcasts will hear our discussions there about the annoying suitcases.
Rolling in front of you, yes.
Yeah. But I really, vision really wasn't an issue. One thing that was interesting was a pair of my obstruction glasses was laying on the table in the house, and my sister visited, and she also has RP again, you know, it's hereditary. And she put them on, and she was facing me, and she was like, "Oh wow, to my side, I can see my husband."
On the obstructed side.
On the immediate side.
Wow.
And you know, I can believe it. It proves all along that I knew that her periphery was better than mine.
Right.
And I think a lot of what I'm waking up is that potential that she already has.
Right.
You know, I don't know the reasons why mine would have got worse than what hers is. But it shows that the potential is there for me to have that extra periphery, and that's really what I feel I'm waking up again, that she already has. And I think that was really interesting to me to see that comparison, because we're only a few years different. You know, my periphery there is worse than hers. But what was interesting to her is she was amazed that she could see that in her periphery. And her initial response was, well, why don't I drive? Because she's restricted herself from driving.
Right.
Because, you know, everyone's telling her that you can't see in your periphery. So that was interesting.
Wow. And she already knows how to drive, right? So she could go back to it.
Yeah. She could, yeah.
Wow.
Some real some interesting things there. I found that I was obstructing a lot more out of intuition.
Yeah.
This time round, just being in theory, it's not a foreign environment, but it's a foreign environment now. After being here and traveling for a while. So, you know, I just found myself putting the obstruction glasses on, you know, in the morning, you know, because I felt like I needed it, that there was that imbalance was coming in there because I hadn't obstructed for a while. So it was a real, it really showed me the integrated side of all the work that I've been putting in. And what was even nicer is coming back, I've been here for a few days now, was I was really able just to pick up where I left off with the exercises. I've got no real, I don't know if you remember before, over the previous podcasts, I've talked about if I don't do my exercises for a few days, I get headaches, straining the eyes and things. And I I think because I spent a lot less time on the computer, that my vision didn't feel, I didn't have those headaches and such.
Right,
but
right.
no, I've picked that up, and I'm looking forward to 2013, which is what we're going to be talking a bit about today, and just sort of picking up from my program, where I left off, and taking it forward.
Sounds good.
So it's a good time to move on to topic of the week.
And the topic of the week this week is 5 steps to a New Year's resolution. Part 1 is being specific.
So this really stems back to a lot of things that Richard and I have done over the years, whether it's exercise programs or diet programs or vision improvement programs, is using this sort of generic technique, which is called the SMART technique.
Right.
And it's a way of setting your goals so that you're going to be more successful in achieving your goals, which is obviously, there's not much point in setting a goal if you know from the offset that you're not going to see it through.
Right. And this first step of being specific is, well, they're all important steps, but this one is like, instead of saying, I want to improve my eyesight, that's not specific enough. The first step we're going to talk about is narrowing it down from, I want my vision to be better or something like that.
And just in case our listeners aren't familiar with the SMART technique, we're going to be going through each individual one, and S in the SMART is specific.
Yeah.
M is measurable. Then the A is attainable, the R is realistic, and then the T is timely. So, if you don't know all of that, don't worry. Our aim here is to go over the next few weeks, explaining a little bit more detail how you can take these principles and then apply them to your vision improvement goal, so that you can set a really good goal, so that this time next year you would have been looking to have achieved that goal and be one step further in your
and I think a lot of problems people hit are they set goals without going through these steps, and then they don't achieve those goals, and then they either give up on. A lot of people just give up on setting goals at all, and and then you're just sort of floundering a little bit. So if you go through these steps, then you will hopefully come up with a goal that then is achievable. Well, all of those things, and then you can actually achieve that goal, and you won't be sort of setting yourself up for failure, basically.
So much of our work that we've been trying to put into these podcasts is trying to help people to continue doing their programs, because anyone that's ever tried the eye exercises know that they work, they see improvements from them. That's not the issue. The issue is how you can continue to do the exercises in a positive way, so you continue doing the program. So if you can set a good goal in the first place, then you're more likely to continue aiming for that goal than setting yourself an impossible task. After a couple of months, you're like, well, this is just too much. And then you just quit. So if you can use the SMART technique to choose your goal in the first place, then you're going to be that much more likely to achieve it.
So as I say, let's start with the S, the specific. So I would say that the first step in terms of vision improvement is to go through your conditions. Maybe you only have one condition, so it'll be an easy step. But you would go through, like for me, I have optic atrophy, I have astigmatism, I have myopia. I think that's it, right? Is that enough? And I have a slight convergence problems with that's almost gone, but with my internal muscles on my extraocular muscles are a little weak, so I get a little bit of double vision. So those are my conditions. You could then go through and say my symptoms are the astigmatism. I have a slight blurring or double vision from the astigmatism. I have a slight double vision from the convergence problems. I have the blur in the distance from the myopia. I just thought of something else, color blindness. But and then the optic atrophy gives me a reduced color sensitivity and an overall blurring and blind spots. So those are conditions and the symptoms that go with them. So that's what we would recommend first, is to make a list of those.
And if someone doesn't necessarily, I mean, it's easier for us because we know the names of conditions.
Right.
We already know what the generic symptoms would be of that. Even if you don't know the name, then maybe you could just write down the symptoms.
Good, yeah.
Themselves. Ideally, it helps for us, and to also, when we educate our clients, it's really good to break it down because it makes things so much more manageable, right? You can say, well, this we're working on your myopia. Well, when we do this, we're working on your optic atrophy.
Right.
And it's easier for the brain to digest, and it's also easier for us to see how we can work on it. So by breaking this up in itself is fantastic for when you're creating a program. But in particular here, when you're going to do a goal, then it really means that you can be specific and pick out one point. Because, I mean, just saying, I mean, in a way, it would be great to say vision improvement, because you could just go out and do some sunning.
and you'd achieved your New Year's resolution.
And you've done it
That's true.
in like a week. But on the flip side of that is that you could say, well, I want to improve my vision. And then you sort of improved it, but you didn't improve it to where you wanted it. So you feel that you failed your goal. And it's really subjective, right? The word improvement is very much to the individual's own idea of what improvement is. So being more specific on what that actual symptom is, and then you can work with that and focus on it throughout the year.
And then ideally, I guess it would be great if you could go to an ophthalmologist and get a diagnosis of all of these things.
Yeah.
And in particular, if you could get like the degree of myopia, the degree of astigmatism, know those numbers, it would be very useful as well.
Yeah.
But if you don't, Will is right. You could just look at your symptoms and write those down.
And we will talk about that next week, which is measurable. So certainly we'll talk a bit more about actually measuring your vision so that you can do that. But sometimes it's also important for you to do it, I guess, from your own perspective, because sometimes the ophthalmologist might not pick up on certain things. So if you notice a particular floater or a particular fuzzy spot in a particular situation, it's really can come down to what you notice as an individual. You could try journaling for a week. And I guess this comes to the next part, and the second part of being specific, which is to then prioritize that list to help you decide which one you want to focus on.
Right.
Now, I guess, ironically, we were talking before about the psychology behind things. And I guess the one at the top of the list is the one that you're going to be most connected to emotionally.
Yeah, my time management friend Steve, he refers to he's teaching me time management. He always asks me every day, what does he say? Oh, what's the biggest frog you need to eat today? Which is something unpleasant that's setting off. You're right. It's setting off probably the most intense emotional reaction. Is the biggest frog that you need. So that it may end up being number one on your list and the thing you're most resistant to, possibly too. Yeah.
And it might be interesting as we go through these different beginnings here on the SMART principle, that you might actually decide when you look at it from taking a step back and sort of saying, well, maybe I am a little bit too connected to this goal now. Maybe I need to go for number 2 in my priority list, or maybe go
back
for
your way
3.
around it or something. Yeah.
But we'll certainly go through that this whole principle here, so that you'll be able to make that decision by the end of it. But certainly be aware of that. It's really something that we just ignore in vision improvement, and indeed in any sort of healing or self-improvement. And the more you're aware of these things, the more likely you're going to succeed.
Right.
So that's it then for this week. Your homework is to go away. You're going to make a list of your conditions and your symptoms with those conditions, and then rank them, either number them down the side, put them in a list that you feel that you're going to want to work on these conditions. Choose one of those out of the list that you have. Ideally, for a lot of our listeners, it would just be one.
Yeah, be nice, but none of us have that, it seems like. So,
so if you are one of those lucky few, then good for you. But if you do have a couple or even a few more than a couple, like Richard and myself,
yeah,
then number them down the side. Think about it over the week. Certainly write it out initially, and then maybe come back over the next 7 days, and just take a look and think, oh well, maybe there's also this that I hadn't written down, or oh well, actually, these two things are the same symptom.
Right.
Think about it for a bit, so that next week when we talk about actually measuring that symptom for you to be able to work on, then you're going to be that much more specific, and you'll know how to work on it that much more.
One last thing I just thought of is it is possible, say you would focus on, like I could focus on my convergence issue, and it'll help. Doing that exercise could end up helping other symptoms. They're not completely exclusive anyway, so don't take it so serious like, well, I'm completely ignoring this by doing this exercise or focusing on that.
And we're not saying this is the only thing you're going to work on. We're just talking about goal setting here, and it's just a way to help keep you motivated for your program, and you're more likely to achieve those small goals, which in the bigger picture obviously is your vision improvement.
Right.
So yeah, don't feel like, oh well, if I'm only going to work on this, but I also want to work on that.
Yeah.
We're not saying that. Ideally your program will be generic to all your stuff, so that you will improve your whole vision, not just one symptom. But in particular here, we are talking about goal setting and to help you guys out with your New Year resolutions.
Sounds good.
So it's a good time to move on to question of the week.
And the question of the week comes from Facebook, and this person we're
the actual face, not from
what's his name? Right. No, not from him. A person on Facebook, and we're applauding this guy for being very, very diligent in working out at the gym,
and observant as well.
Exactly. Actually, we probably applaud that more than working out at the gym, because we're probably just jealous of how buff he is. But and he says that when he works out vigorously, that his vision gets worse, and he has RP. That's one of the things we need to put in here. And can you describe having RP? What do you know? When he says his vision gets worse, what would you say it probably is?
I mean, in fact, it'd be fascinating if he could actually message us again on Facebook and let us know. For me, I'm assuming what I would describe as the increased static.
Static, right?
Sort of like a loud white noise or something.
Right.
He might see it as acuity, which might mean that it's not necessarily to do with the RP. This is why these sort of questions. They're never black and white, and it does take some forward and backwards questioning to get.
And I think I might confirm that, because as you say that, when I exercise strongly, I see the static increase in my blind spots.
Okay.
And I've definitely, because my condition is so related to blood flow, it's simple for me to go, oh, that's I'm getting more static. Optic atrophy is about blood flow. I'm exercising. Mm-hmm. And I can actually see, it's a strange phenomenon. I've often asked people with normal vision, I'm doing air quotes here, if they have this phenomenon. But in my blind spot, when my blood is pumping enough, the blind spot starts to pulse.
Wow.
You've never had, you don't have normal vision either, but but in the blind spot, I was like, wow, part of my vision is pulsing.
I've never seen you mean your scotomas, or you mean your natural blind spot that everyone
The scotomas.
has? Oh, okay.
The enlarged blind spots.
Right.
There's a big, especially in my left eye, which has a large scotoma. I can see that area, the scotoma, actually it's like a little heartbeat within that, but not in the rest of my vision. And
so certainly what we're saying here, that there's a connection, and I guess there's several reasons that this loss of vision could be occurring, and I think we both agreed that our main reason that we feel is circulation.
Right.
And ironically, you would say, well, you're exercising, so you've got better circulation.
Right.
And this is where we not make a statement, but we want to make sure people understand there's a difference between good circulation and increasing your heart rate and pumping more blood around the body.
Yeah.
So with, good circulation, you've got nice loose muscles. Blood is able to flow around the body to the eyes nice and easily. That's why we teach a lot of self-massage, and that's why we do a lot of body work here in San Francisco when we work with our clients, is to get rid of the knots, muscle tension, loosen up the body so you have good circulation.
Right. And this is something we learned from Meir early on. And I have to say, when I started seeing Meir 20 years ago, and when I first started seeing him, I've never said this to you, but he was very against any kind of bodybuilding or upper body strengthening. He isn't anymore, ironically. He really changed over the years. Okay. But that was his reasoning, is to not build the muscle up to the point where it was squeezing on the blood flow. And he's changed his mind now and says, well, if you do the massage, if you keep the looseness, you can have very strong muscles and it wouldn't impede the blood flow.
Yeah, the idea is to be in the middle, not so strong that you're stiff and not so flexible that you don't have that strength.
Yeah.
So to be in the middle there and have that good circulation, work on yourself. And if you think about it, when you're exercising, as far as the eyes are concerned, the blood's going to the muscles. It's trying to get more oxygen to the muscles so they can work better. It's also working to try and take the lactic acid away. He also mentioned on the Facebook message on our fan page that he knows it's not dehydration, which is also
that is important.
Because he keeps hydrated. But he also mentioned that he eats a meal beforehand, and the problem with that is that all the blood is also trying to digest the food at the same time.
Right.
So there's even less blood available there to the eyes. Now, I recognise this before from my father and I run half marathons, which is fascinating because he's legally blind, so it's something that we've trained together, and it's great to see him running and achieving those half marathons. And I remember the last one that we ran around about the 10-mile mark. Because I have to tell him step up, step down, because we're running on streets and curbs and stuff. So he can't see. He goes on my command and he steps up when we step up. We go at a pretty good pace as well. I think we ran the half marathon in 2 hours and 9 minutes was our time for the last one. And I was just amazed that he didn't trip over once. And I went, you can see these steps, can't you? And he was like, nope. And I remember as we got towards the end, he was like, look, I really can't make anything out now. And his vision did.
Okay.
He really did start losing his vision towards the end. Now, when I run, I guess I've noticed it, but I notice it more as a mental fatigue. Right. I'm exhausted. My legs aren't moving properly, so I'm sort of stumbling into things from where all the lactic acid has built up. So I think there's certainly a combination there between the mental fatigue. I know with my eyes, I always talk about how I have to concentrate if I want to see well in my periphery. Now it'd be interesting with this guy if it's an acuity blur or whether it's an overall. I don't know whether he would know the difference.
Yeah,
and what we're trying to explain.
And for me, they go together. With optic atrophy, they kind of go together. So it's a hard one to separate out because,
or whether it's a loss of peripheral field as well, that would be interesting.
That would be more clear,
if it's, and also, we don't have the age or the advancedness of this RP. So that would also be interesting to know as well. But certainly, several reasons there. We would certainly recommend doing a lot of self-massage, maybe go and see a therapist once a week.
Right.
Start getting that blood flow and also start thinking about the intensity. It's great to do intense exercise, but maybe if it was, say you're cycling and you're cycling at level 12 and you notice you're starting to get that vision loss, I wonder if you just did it on 11 or 10 or just a notch down and start playing with it. And the best person for the answers to this question is the individual themselves.
Right.
And it really involves an exploration process. Monitor it, maybe even write a journal, do different exercise, have different things, maybe try and describe it. I know for me, sometimes I get sort of white flashes around in the periphery, which for me is an oxygen thing. And try and bring more description to it so that you can start figuring out an answer. Okay, great. Well, we hope you enjoyed this week's podcast and you all had fantastic holidays and a good start off to the new year. And we hope that over these next few weeks on the podcast, you're really going to be able to nail down your New Year's resolution to take you that one step further. So this time next year, you'll be in that much better place for your vision improvement. If you want to check out a little bit more information, you can head over to our website at envisionselfhealing.com and you can find plenty of information there on how you can start improving your eyesight. You can also get your hands on a free ebook, which is called A Modern Day Guide for Improving Eyesight, which is a real beginner's basic guide to vision improvement and how we feel that modern day life can be attributing to poorer vision, and indeed how we can use our body and our natural environment to bring our vision improvement back again. You can also check us out on our Envision Self Healing Facebook fan page, and you can both follow Richard and I on Twitter by checking out our Twitter accounts there. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then click the subscribe button and it makes sure that you'll get one of our episodes every week. And indeed, if you're listening to this on something like iTunes, then you can also subscribe there. And again, you'll be able to get next week's episode where we're going to be talking about a measurable part of your goal setting. So good luck with your eye exercises this week and happy healing.
And have a good week.